Hey everyone, welcome back to Keto and Crime. I am back with what happened Friday, May 3rd, in the Chad Daybell trial. If you're watching this when it first dropped, it is Monday, May 6th. My name is Tracy. I do true crime, dark history, horror movie reviews, and cases that I have done a lot of videos on. I also tend to follow the case. I've done 𝗪𝗏, 𝗠𝘂𝗪, and now Chad Daybell. I try to condense all the information from the testimony stream down into smaller chunks, with hitting as much of the high points as possible for people that just don't have time to listen to the live stream. I do have a day job, so I'm listening throughout the day. I'm also reading East Idaho News' minute by minute update, and when I am watching, I am taking notes. So I do the best I can to only outline it so that you're only getting the best. I do holiday trees. I know Cinco de Mayo is over, but I still have my Cinco de Mayo tree up. That will be changing over to patriotic in the next few days for Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day. But I will get that done as quickly as possible. And until then, I am going to dive into what happened on Friday, May 3rd, in the Chad Daybell trial. Reminder, last week was a short week. There was no court on Tuesday, so it was only 4 days. And Friday, the one I'm about to cover, was a very short day. They let out just after lunch. So let's dive in, shall we? Court begins with a retired Rexburg detective, David Stubs, who was the last one on the stand from Thursday, May 2nd. As I said, there was an announcement early on that they will be ending what would be right after what would be the normal lunch period. So letting you know it is a short day. I'll try to keep my analysis brief as well. Wood is back to direct examination of Detective Stubs, and he is asked. And these Detective Stubs was one of the ones that went out to do the welfare check on JJ and 𝗙𝗪 at the behest of the Woodcocks, and we are now back to that. We're still watching the video camera evidence, video camera evidence from that day, and the video is officially moved to be placed into an exhibit. They show all of the entire search of all the different apartments, 104, 175, 174. And basically it shows that the occupants left in haste. There's nothing in them. They pretty much just cleared them out. They go through each and every different room, showing how hastily things were cleared out. There's hangers where the clothes have obviously just been jerked off. And there's just very little there personal effects. So both Alex, Lori, and Melanie Boudreau cleared out of there as quickly as possible. And then Wood, I thought it was kind of funny. He mentioned that on one of the one of the cam videos that they did mispronounce Brandon Boudreau's name, and David said, "Yes, I did. I was not sure how to pronounce that name." Then Stubb asked if he found any evidence that Brandon ever lived in 174. He says no. I don't know why that was important, but they did bring that up. And then they bring up a projection of the warrant that was sent to all of the cell phone companies to get all the cell phone data. They went over why they did that. They needed to track everyone's movements, and that he goes over how they do that with the geolocators. They also talk about how they found the email accounts, the Homer J. Maximus, which we know was Alex Cox, the Lori Perstyle, all of that, with all of the GPS movements, emails, text messages that were saved to the iCloud. And basically, the reason they did it is because they were trying to locate the two children. And so they figured where their electronics were, so they would be also. Then they said that no one ever returned to the apartments after November 27th. The landlords went in to clean the units, found a couple of electronic devices that they promptly turned over to the police. So these guys just skipped out on their leases. And basically, they again go over all of the records from the cell phones, the texts, how those work. And then they tracked a couple of the devices to Kauai, Hawaii, and that's how they found out that Chad and Lori were living in Hawaii. And then they went about talking how they got the warrants and the cert and all of that together with the Kauai police, and how they also searched Melanie Boudreau's phone. And basically what happened, they called Melanie Boudreau in while she was being interrogated. They got the warrant on her phone, asked for her phone, and did the download of everything they need at that point. Then they talk about a notebook that was found in the vehicle that Chad and Lori was using in Hawaii that had pages of email accounts and passwords, and that's how they found all of the other iCloud accounts. And then they talked about how both children's bodies were found in June on the Daybell property, and how the warrants for the search of that property was obtained, mostly because Lori failed to produce the children as ordered by the judge when she was taken into custody in Hawaii. Basically, they go through how many devices each person had. There was a lot, and they basically nailed everything down to 12 devices of interest that were owned by various people, that these are the ones they should concentrate on, and then they honed in on those devices and the accounts associated with those devices. Then they said that basically everything that we found in all the other devices was no different than what they had already found. Basically, the wedding rings being ordered, a credit card failing, the use of the credit cards, all of that good stuff. One interesting tidbit that Wood hones in on is a search history for Chad.Daybell@gmail on September 9th. Somebody using that Google account logged in to search for wind direction on September 9th. So they believe that was associated with the fact that Tylee's body was going to be burned. Then they talked about a flash drive that he found that had several photos of Chad and Lori's wedding in Hawaii, and they used forensic software to see what all was on there. And basically, he found some old photos of Chad and Tammy and their family on there, and those had all been deleted to replace them with the videos of their wedding. Dad, husband of the year. The next exhibit after a quick break is a photo of Lori and Chad getting married on the beach, and then the infamous we've all seen of her dancing the hula while Chad plays the ukulele poorly, I'm sure. And then the next one is that one where they're looking into each other's eyes. They hone in on the rings and realize they were the same rings. They were ordered via the Amazon order that we've heard so much about. And at this point, Wood rests, and Pryor begins to cross-examine Stubbs. He asked if universal time, which is kind of worldwide time, is used in adjusting cellular data. He says they do use it, but then it is translated into the local time to have a better understanding. He then asked for more clarification of who lived in what apartment in Rexburg. Stubbs gives him all that clarification, and Pryor then asked Stubbs to review 15 photos on a computer. He puts them up on the projector, and Stubbs does look them over. He said that then Pryor asked if Stubbs found any evidence that tickets to Disneyland or Knott's Berry Farms were purchased by anybody associated with this case, and Stubbs says he didn't personally investigate that aspect of a case, but is aware that there was a trip. Pryor then asked that because Lori Daybell's apartment was vacated, doesn't that mean Chad Daybell's home was vacated? Stubbs said he was not part of the search on the Daybell property. He was only part of the search at the apartment complex. Again, Pryor asked Stubbs if he's aware that Chad Daybell was not implicated in the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreau, and Stubbs said he's very much aware of that. He then asked Stubbs if he was part of the team that investigated Melanie Gibbs' claims, and she said he was not part of that, but he was given the information. He said that, what evidence do you have that Chad was part of that whole thing to say that JJ was with Melanie at Frozen 2? He says, I have no evidence of that, just that they were together a lot, and we do have Chad on recording talking to Melanie. He then asked if they'd ever looked at Melanie Gibbs' phone records. He says no, he personally has not, and he says he's also not looked at David Warwick's phone records. And then Pryor basically said, well, you know, they were last seen at Lori's apartment the last day JJ was seen alive. He says he knows, but their testimony was very convincing, and they found no evidence that they were lying about that. I don't know what Pryor is wanting to do with this. Is he trying to now pin it on David and Melanie? I don't know. So basically, he continues more about the evidence found at Lori's house, and then he asked him point blank, did you ever see a message between my client, Chad Daybell, and Lori Vallow saying, let's kill the kids? He goes, no, but we found all this other... Stubbs is getting pretty well pissed off. He says, no, but it doesn't necessarily have to come off like that either. Then Wood starts objecting, saying that this is asinine, basically. And so it is, but Boyce does overrule it, but he does tell Pryor to be more careful about his questioning. Pryor releases the witness, and Wood does have a couple of redirects. He does ask if Melanie Gibb or David Warwick showed up in the geo-tracking investigation, that were their phones or anything associated with them fit in with anything in this timeline, and Stubbs says no, they were off in doing their own thing far away from the others, and said that Gibb was cooperating with police, and later on Warwick did too. And pardon me, I'm getting some allergies, so my voice is kind of crackly. Wood then asked if any of Gibbs or Warwick's kids were found on the property, and Stubbs says no, he has nothing further. The next witness is called is FBI Special Agent Steve Daniels. He's part of the evidence response team. He's worked for the FBI for 26 years, but he left last year. Daniels describes all the training he did. He's helped recover human remains in many cases, and he was the senior team leader in the search for JJ and 𝗙lie. He talks about the warrants, why they were called in, and then begins by describing the day they arrived on the Daybell property in June of 2020. He talks about how he assigned the roles, how he did a walkthrough of the property, and kind of outlined how they would be carrying out the search. He says that 2 members of his team were assigned to assess the fire pit, and because of the text message about the raccoon, they were going to center in on that. And then he also assigned a couple of people to dig near the pond. And then they started admitting the evidence photos and of everything that was found the days that the bodies were found. Said that they outlined the entire 40 acres that was searched, and highlighted what they found that day. Nothing that you haven't heard before. But basically, they also talk about Chad's movements and Alex's movements around that day, and we were talking kind of about their movements, and as well as the chase, you know, when Chad left the property and had to be brought back. Again, nothing that you haven't heard. Then they talk about the actual search itself, what they found. Where JJ's remains were found versus where 𝗙lie's were found, and the conditions of both. And then they kind of talk about photos taken on the property showing where the house was, Emma's house, the barn, the fence, the pond, the pet cemetery / burn pit. And then they actually hone in on both of the grave sites, showing exactly where they were found, along with photos from Google Earth of the actual digs and where the bodies were found. They also noted the dog statue in the pet cemetery, and that he described how both areas were excavated layer by layer, and the condition of each body as it was found. And then it also kind of shows pictures of the team as they searched. And then they also showed pictures of the kids wearing in life some of the things that were found on their bodies, like 𝗙lie's necklace or chain and JJ's pajamas. So just as more things, they also showed how they disseminated between pet remains and human remains as far as the pet cemetery goes. And then he talked about all the tools they used and the procedures they went through when everything was turned over to the coroner. And then they showed the infamous green melted bucket, which contained Tylee's skull, or what was left of her skull, the oil on the side of it, and basically how they had attempted to burn it. They talked about the animal anthropologist that was brought in to assure that these were human remains and not animal remains. And then he showed how they had, put after they had done all their work, how they put the land back together. And basically they asked, what tools were used to bury these bodies. And he says there were no automated machinery, no backhoes or anything was used, that whoever buried the bodies buried them with shovels. And it was pretty much something that anybody would have in their garage or shed if they lived in the country like that. And that they had taken into custody all potential materials that could have been used to hide the bodies that day to be chemically and forensically tested. And at this point, testimony ends. So when I am back tomorrow, Tuesday, May 7th, to go over what happened today, Monday, the 6th, the FBI agent will be back on the stand. And with that being said, until next time, keto and crime.